At first, it seemed like just another hectic morning at the train depot. Folks hurrying, announcements blaring, kids giggling. Amid the throng, a police dog suddenly halted his ears, perked his gaze fixed on a young girl holding her mom's hand. To everybody else, she appeared normal, but to Max, something was off. Her shaking fingers drummed 5 times against her mom's back repeatedly. Nobody spotted the quiet signal except him. In moments, Max broke rank, tugging his handler toward the kid. His handler attempted to restrain him. "What's up, pal?" he questioned in bewilderment, but Max wouldn't budge. What they revealed next would stun the whole station. Stick around until the finish, because what Max uncovers will leave you stunned. Before we dive in, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And honestly, I'm wondering, where are you tuning in from? Put your country in the comments. I enjoy seeing how widely our tales reach. The morning rush at the main station was in full swing, footsteps resounding across the marble surfaces, the buzz of chatter mixing into a constant rhythmic hum. Officer Tom adjusted his uniform hat as he strolled beside his K9 companion Max, a powerful trained German shepherd with keen golden eyes that overlooked nothing. The duo had partnered for more than 5 years, their connection built through numerous patrols and high-stakes situations that challenged both bravery and gut feeling. It was meant to be another standard shift. Nothing out of the ordinary, just the typical group of commuters, the noise of wheeled luggage and announcements rebounding off tall ceilings. But Tom knew better than to drop his vigilance. Past lessons had shown him that trouble seldom announced itself. It might lurk in an abandoned bag, a jittery expression, or even a harmless motion. And Max. Max could detect what people couldn't. They proceeded through the concourse, examining faces, observing behaviors. Max walked with silent accuracy, his vest marked police shining under the vivid lights. Travelers grinned as they went by, some even snapping pictures. Tom offered a courteous nod, though his eyes continued scanning the space, a perpetual balance between serenity and readiness. He stopped briefly near the central hall, allowing Max to sniff along a line of seats. The dog's tail swung idly, his nose operating quietly. All appeared routine. An executive sped by with a coffee. A mom calmed her wailing infant, and a bunch of visitors clustered near the ticket booth, chuckling. "Another calm day, eh, friend?" Tom muttered. Max's ears twitched at the voice, but his stare remained fixed on the flowing crowd. Shortly after, the speaker crackled. "Attention, travelers. Train 407 leaving in 15 minutes. Folks started moving quicker, now the crowd swelling like a wave. Tom stood straighter, firming his hold on Max's leash. To anyone observing, they seemed like just another cop and his dog, a comforting symbol of security. But under that tranquility, Tom's senses were attuned to every twitch of activity. And Max, always watchful, surveyed the sea of individuals ahead with quiet concentration. Neither realized that before this tour concluded, one tiny cue from a scared child would alter everything. The stream of passengers grew denser as the moments passed. The concourse hummed with activity. Voices overlapping, announcements, resounding footsteps merging into an anxious beat. Tom navigated cautiously through the throng, checking the faces ahead, while Max walked beside him, every stride deliberate. The German shepherd's head turned a bit as he watched people going by, a standard scan for anything odd. Near the checkpoint, Tom's gaze landed on a lady in a vivid blue jacket, walking hand in hand with 3 kids. She appeared composed almost overly, so advancing quickly as if anxious to blend into the crowd. Her youngest, a small girl with light brown hair, lagged a bit behind her tiny hand, gripping her mom's fingers. Something about her motion caught Tom's eye. The lady looked like any typical traveler, weary, concentrated, toting a big black purse on her shoulder. But the small girl there was something in her eyes. They were large, shiny, almost seeking. She glanced around uneasily, looking back every few steps. Her lips shifted slightly as if she wished to speak, but couldn't. Max's ears twitched. The dog slowed his posture, changing from relaxed to vigilant. Tom noticed right away. Max never altered conduct without cause. "What is it, pal?" he whispered. The dog didn't bark. Instead, he stared directly ahead at the lady and her kids. Tom tracked his gaze and spotted the small girl again. She had dropped a step behind her family now, her small hand slipping a bit from her mom's grasp before being yanked back. Her movements were reluctant, her steps irregular, not the joyful rhythm of a kid traveling with family. Tom's instincts prodded him. He had witnessed fear before, the type that conceals behind quiet. The girl's body language wasn't just fatigue, it was controlled. He dismissed the idea for the time being. Perhaps she was timid or afraid of crowds, but Max didn't remove his eyes from them. His focus was unyielding, his breathing even tail-rigid. Tom breathed out slowly, surveying the bustling concourse once more. He didn't realize it yet, but in the midst of that usual morning rush, a wordless plea for aid was about to emerge, one that only Max could detect. The crowd swelled as another train notice echoed through the concourse. People rushed past, hauling suitcases and holding coffee cups. Oblivious to the subtle change occurring at floor level, Max had ceased walking. His body's stiffened ears erect, nostrils widening as he inhaled the surrounding air. The leash tightened. Tom looked down immediately. "What is it, pal?" he grumbled, scanning the area ahead. But Max didn't shift. His golden eyes were fixed on a single path toward the lady in the blue jacket and her 3 kids threading through the crowd. It wasn't the typical indication of threat. There was no explosive odor, no hint of narcotics. This was different, keener, instinctive. Max's growl was low, nearly a murmur of alert. Tom felt the vibration via the leash before he even heard it. "Easy," he said softly, his eyes squinting. He had learned long ago never to disregard Max's senses. The dog's behavior was exact, never arbitrary. If Max stopped it, signified something amiss. Ahead, the small girl turned her head for a quick second. Their eyes met a short, almost begging glance. Then she swiftly looked away. The lady firmed her hold on the child's hand, drawing her nearer, as if scared of losing her. Tom caught the action, his pulse accelerating. Max's tail went stiff, and he advanced one step, his breathing deepened, nostrils flaring once more. The faint noise of his claws tapping against the shiny floor cut through the din. Tom followed his gaze, observing the family near the ticket barriers. Something about the lady's motion seemed compelled, her grin to the ticket agent too intentional, her posture unnaturally stiff. The girl tripped a bit, nearly tumbling, but the lady didn't pause to console her. She just pulled harder. That lone action made Max bark, once sharp, authoritative enough to turn several heads. "Max, quiet," Tom ordered, attempting to keep composure, but his partner ignored. The German Shepherd held his position, muscles taut, eyes steadfast. People nearby paused, whispering softly. Tom's gut clenched. Whatever Max had detected, it wasn't a mistake. The dog's senses were yelling, but about what Tom firmed his grip on the leash, scanning the faces ahead. He didn't know it yet, but Max had already detected the one thing no person had observed, the silent pulse of peril throbbing just under the surface. The station was vibrant with activity, a constant haze of people voices and sound, but to Max, everything else vanished. His focus had shrunk to one thing, the small girl. Every part of his body was vigilant. Tom felt it through the leash, a tense quiver like a heartbeat of instinct. The lady in the blue jacket led her kids toward the waiting section. Her pace was quick, her grip firm. The tiniest girl lagged behind again, her small fingers grazing her mom's back. It was a minor gesture, barely visible in the crowd, but Max caught it right away. 5 rapid taps, a pause, then 5 more. Tom nearly missed it, but Max didn't. The German Shepherd stiffened, tail lifting, as he emitted a low, purposeful growl. It wasn't hostility, it was signaling. His training taught him to respond not only to sense, but to body signals, to patterns. Something about that motion wasn't accidental. Tom's brows knitted. "What are you spotting, friend?" he whispered. Max's eyes never left the girl. His head tilted a bit, as if analyzing her every action. The child appeared terrified her lips pressed tight, her eyes shining. She turned her face away fast, pretending to fix her sweater, but her body shook. Then it occurred again. 5 soft taps of her hand against the lady's back. This time, Tom saw it too. Subtle, secretive, but deliberate. The officer's stomach nodded. He had seen encoded signs before, signals used by victims attempting to signal help without talking. "Could that be what this was?" Max growled again, louder, this time attracting notice from close passengers. The lady flinched, turning around to face them. Her face was pale, but her smile was forced. "Is there an issue, officer?" she inquired, her tone even but unsteady around the edges. Tom examined her carefully. "Just a regular patrol," he answered, his eyes shifting between her and the shaking child. Max advanced another step, his body tense, his senses pulling strongly against the leash. The atmosphere thickened, a silent struggle between calm and disorder. The girl looked up, her eyes meeting Max's for one short second. And in that instant, something unspoken passed between them, a message only he could comprehend. Tom's pulse sped up. This wasn't coincidence anymore. Something was very, very wrong, and Max was prepared to demonstrate it. The air inside the concourse felt abruptly heavier, like the buzz of talk had muted into an uneasy hush. Tom could sense it, a change in vibe that only experienced officers detect, and Max was at the heart of it. His leash tightened again, muscles flexing under his golden black fur. His growl rumbled low and profound, vibrating through the air like a warning siren before a tempest. Tom firmed his grip. "Max, heel," he commanded gently, but Max didn't shift. His paws were planted solidly on the polished floor, eyes fixed on the lady in the blue jacket. His ears flattened, his nostrils widened, and his body leaned ahead with intense resolve. Every order that usually directed him, sit, stay, leave it, dissolved into quiet. This wasn't defiance. It was gut feeling taking over. The lady froze, shocked by the growl. Her smile wavered. "Why is your dog glaring at us?" she asked rapidly, trying to seem relaxed. "We haven't done anything improper." Tom's voice stayed level. "Ma'am, he's a trained canine. He doesn't respond without cause." Around them, commuters slowed, pulled by interest. Phones rose, discreetly filming the incident. The child pointed. Whispers spread through the crowd like a ripple. Tom could feel many eyes watching, awaiting his next action, but his attention was on the dog and on the fear he'd seen in the small girl's eyes. "Max," he murmured again, lowering his voice. "Talk to me, friend. What do you see?" Max's gaze moved from the lady's face to the girl's shaking hands. Then, with the abrupt surge, he pulled ahead. Tom barely grabbed the leash in time. The power almost threw him off balance. "Hey!" the lady snapped, stepping back abruptly, clutching her kids. "Control your dog!" Tom lifted his free hand, signaling for peace. "Everyone, please remain back," he called to the nearby crowd. His other hand hovered near his holster, out of sheer routine, not menace. Max barked, once loud, commanding resounding off the concourse walls. The girl flinched, covering her ears. But what grabbed Tom's attention wasn't the bark. It was her response. She didn't appear afraid of the dog. She appeared relieved. Her lips moved. Just 2 words mouthed quietly toward him. "Help us." Tom's breath hitched in his chest. Max let out another sharp bark, pulling again, his eyes burning with intent. He wasn't just reacting. He was replying to a cry only he could hear. Tom's training yelled to keep control, but his senses told him different. Something deeper was occurring here, something no guide had readied him for. He took a steady breath, looked at Max, and whispered, "All right, partner, lead the way." And with that, the dog surged ahead into the truth that was about to unravel everything. The noise in the concourse changed from background talk to uneasy whispers. Dozens of curious eyes tracked the confrontation between the police dog and the lady in the blue jacket. Tom's pulse sped up, but his expression remained calm, the calm of someone who'd stood between panic and order too many times to count. "Ma'am," he said steadily, "please stay right where you are." The lady stiffened, her hand firming around the small girl's arm. "I don't get it," she said, voice shaking just enough to sound believable. "Why is your dog acting like this?" Max stood his ground, chest heaving with heavy breaths. His tail was rigid, his stance forward, his focus razor sharp. Tom had seen Max confront armed suspects in volatile crowds, but never this degree of alert without obvious trigger. The girl tried to talk, but the lady snapped. Quiet. It was sharp, almost reflexive, and her voice cracked on the word. That single moment made Tom's heart beat harder. No mom speaks to her child like that when she's scared. Not unless fear is concealing something deeper. Tom took a slow step ahead. "I'm going to have to request you open your bag." Her eyes darted around. Why you have no cause? It's standard process." He cut in gently, his voice carrying authority under restraint. "My partner's reacting to something. We just want to resolve it." The crowd grew quieter, sensing something developing beyond normal. Max's ears twitched. His body coiled tighter. The lady hesitated, clutching the bag closer. Tom noticed her hands pale, shaking, the knuckles white from grip. "Ma'am," he said again, softer now, "please, let's make this simple. For a second, her mask cracked. The calm smile disappeared, replaced by something raw. Panic! She adjusted her jacket nervously, her eyes flicking toward the exit. Then she made her move. In a single frantic motion, she turned, pulling the small girl behind her as she tried to shove through the crowd. Gasps erupted. Tom reacted instantly. "Max!" he shouted. The German Shepherd lunged ahead, not to assault, but to block. He moved like lightning, cutting off her path, with accuracy only training could perfect. His bark thundered through the concourse, stopping the lady cold. Tom rushed ahead, drawing just close enough to assert control. "Don't move!" His voice echoed across the hall. The lady froze, eyes wide with realization. She wasn't escaping. Max stood inches from her, growling low, his body a wall of loyalty and justice. Tom's heart pounded as he looked from the shaking child to the lady clutching her arm. He didn't know what was going on yet, but deep down, he knew one thing for sure. Max wasn't mistaken. Something here was dangerously wrong, and the truth was about to emerge. For a long moment, no one moved. The echo of Max's bark still lingered in the air, mixing with the low hum of the crowd that now kept a wary distance. The lady's breathing was sharp and shallow, her grip on the small girl unyielding. Tom's eyes swept over the scene. The trembling child, the tightening leash, the crowd frozen between fear and curiosity. "Ma'am," Tom said firmly, "let go of her hand." The lady didn't move. Her expression flickered, first anger, then desperation. But before she could reply, Max stepped ahead, his growl deepening, protective yet focused. The sound wasn't just warning. It was direction and instinct telling Tom to look closer. The small girl turned her face slightly, just enough to meet his eyes. That brief connection hit him harder than he expected. Her eyes weren't just scared, they were pleading, wide, watery, full of silent words she couldn't speak. It was the look of someone trapped between fear and hope. Tom knelt slightly, softening his tone. "Hey, you okay, sweetie?" The girl's lips parted, but no sound came out. She darted a quick look toward the lady beside her, then back to Tom. Her small shoulders trembled, and her grip around the stuffed toy she carried tightened until her knuckles turned white. Max's ears tilted forward. He sat now perfectly still, but his gaze never wavered from the child. His tail was stiff, his breathing shallow, every fiber of him reading her body language, every micro-expression telling him what humans couldn't hear. The lady shifted uneasily. "She's just frightened," she said quickly. "You're scaring her." Tom stood slowly, his tone steady but unyielding. Then, "Why isn't she looking at me like she's scared of me?" The lady's mouth opened, but no words came out. The crowd murmured quietly, sensing the tension. Tom's instincts screamed louder with each passing second. The girl's expression said everything. The way her gaze flicked toward the exit, the way she pressed her lips together as if holding back tears. She was trying to say something. Max let out a low whine, a sound of empathy more than alert. Tom recognized it instantly. That's when he understood. The girl wasn't scared of the officer or the dog. She was scared for herself. And somewhere beneath that fear, hidden behind her trembling eyes, was a silent plea only one partner could truly hear. Max. The silence between them was almost unbearable. The hum of the crowd faded into a distant blur as the moment thickened with unease. Tom could feel the pulse of tension in the air, in Max's leash, even in the small girl's trembling hands. The lady broke first. "This is absurd," she snapped, her voice trembling with forced anger. "You're terrifying my children. We're just trying to catch our train." Tom didn't blink. "Ma'am, please calm down. I just need to understand why my K9 partner is reacting like this." Max stood firmly beside him, gaze locked onto the lady's bag. His fur bristled slightly, not out of aggression, but heightened awareness. His tail was stiff, his breathing controlled, and his ears flicked with sharp precision. The small girl stepped slightly behind her mother, her eyes darting toward Max again. This time, Tom saw at the faintest shake of her head, a subtle movement that almost said, "Don't let her leave." "Ma'am," Tom repeated, "can you please hand me your bag for inspection?" The lady's lips pressed into a thin line. "No," she said quickly. "You have no right." Before she could finish, Max let out a sudden deep bark, sharp, commanding, and echoing across the hall. The sound startled everyone nearby. A baby cried. Someone gasped. The lady's hand jerked, clutching the strap of her bag tighter. Tom stepped forward. "Max, easy," he murmured, though he knew the dog wasn't acting without reason. His gut twisted. This wasn't a routine alert. Something here was off balance wrong in a way that couldn't be explained by training alone. "Please," the lady said again, this time her voice cracking. "We're late. My children need rest." Her hand trembled slightly as she spoke, betraying the calm her words tried to project. "Then you won't mind a quick check." Tom said, his tone firm but calm. "It'll only take a minute." The small girl's breathing quickened. She clutched her toy tight, her eyes glistening. Max wedged softly, his gaze shifting from her to the bag. Then he barked again, louder, sharper, demanding attention. Tom's hand instinctively moved to the bag zipper. The lady stepped back, shaking her head. "No, please don't." That single protest was all the confirmation Tom needed. He signaled to another officer nearby. "Security, I need assistance," he called out, keeping his eyes on the lady. The crowd murmured louder now, phones raised, whispers buzzing. Max took one step closer. His growl steadied his body, forming a protective barrier between Tom and the family. The lady's facade began to crumble. Her lips trembled. Sweat glistened on her forehead and behind her. The small girl's expression shifted from fear to quiet relief. Tom's instinct screamed the truth. Whatever this lady was hiding, the child had been living inside that fear all along, and Max was seconds away from exposing it. Tom's heart pounded as he stepped closer. The air felt thick with anticipation, the crowd holding its collective breath. Every eye in the concourse was on him, on Max, and on the trembling lady clutching her bag like a shield. "Ma'am," Tom said quietly, "put it down." She didn't move, her knuckles whitened around the strap. "Please," she whispered, her voice fragile now. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." "Then show me." Tom replied, his tone calm but unyielding. Max's growl deepened low, guttural, and full of warning. The dog's instincts were screaming now, every muscle taut with purpose. His gaze shifted between the lady's bag and the small girl standing behind her. The child's lips trembled as she clutched her toy tight, her eyes flicking nervously between the two adults. Finally, the lady's resistance cracked. Her hands trembled as she slowly lowered the bag onto the inspection table. "There's nothing illegal," she murmured. "Please, we just want to go." Tom gave a short nod to one of the assisting officers who began unzipping the bag. The sound of the zipper cutting through the silence felt deafening. Max's body tensed. His nose hovered close, sniffing every motion. Inside at first glance were ordinary things, closed snacks, a folded blanket. But tucked between the layers, Tom saw something odd, a small metallic object wrapped in a child's sweater. He frowned and carefully pulled it out. It wasn't a weapon, it was a phone, a cheap prepaid model, its back taped shut. He handed it to the other officer, who inspected it quickly. "No SIM card," he muttered. Max barked once sharply. His attention snapped to the bottom compartment of the bag. Tom hesitated, then reached deeper. His hand brushed against something stiff. Papers. He pulled them out. A set of travel documents, multiple passports, and several photo IDs, all with different names, but one face, the lady's. Tom's jaw tightened. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "would you like to explain this?" The lady's face drained of color. "It's not what you think, please," Max growled again, louder this time. Tom's eyes dropped to a small, unmarked envelope that had slipped free from the pile. He opened it cautiously. Inside were photographs, grainy shots of children taken from distances like surveillance images. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The lady reached out suddenly, panic flashing in her eyes. "Give those back!" she cried, lunging forward. Tom stepped back instantly, hand raised to stop her. "Enough," he said firmly. "Stay where you are." The girl whimpered softly, her voice cracking as she whispered, "She said we were going on vacation." Tom's stomach turned cold. He exchanged a grave look with the officer beside him. Max stood perfectly still now, silent, watching, waiting. Because both he and Tom knew the truth. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was the beginning of something far darker. For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. The photographs lay scattered across the table, faces of children, some smiling, some terrified. Each picture whispering a story no one wanted to imagine. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, turning into a low wave of disbelief. Tom's focus, however, stayed fixed on the small girl. She stood motionless beside the lady, her wide eyes glistening with tears. She was trying hard not to let fall. Her tiny hands trembled around the stuffed toy, clutching it, as if it were the only safe thing left in the world. "Ma'am," Tom said firmly, "I need you to step aside." The lady shook her head, panic flashing in her eyes. "You don't understand. They'll come for us if you." Max barked once, silencing her. His deep growl rolled like thunder through the concourse. The sound wasn't aggression, it was protection. Tom crouched down slightly, his tone softening as he looked at the girl. "Hey, you're safe, okay? Nobody's going to hurt you, I promise." The girl didn't respond at first. She just stared at him, frozen between fear and trust. Then slowly she shook her head. "Sweetheart," he continued gently, "what's your name?" The lady tried to interrupt. "She doesn't need to talk to you." But before she could move, Max stepped in front of the child, his body forming a silent barrier. His steady, calm posture said everything. The dog knew who needed protecting. The girl hesitated, her gaze shifting from the lady to Max. The dog's eyes softened. Intelligent, patient, unwavering. That was all the reassurance she needed. "My name's Emma." She whispered finally, her voice so faint that Tom had to lean closer to hear. "Hi, Emma," he said softly. "Can you tell me who this lady is to you?" The girl swallowed hard, her small fingers twisting in the fur of her toy. Her voice trembled. She said she was taking us to meet our dad." Tom frowned. "Us?" Emma nodded, pointing weakly toward the photos on the table. "That's them, the other kids. She said we'd all be together again, but her voice broke, but they never came back." A chill swept through the room. Even the murmuring crowd fell silent. The lady's facade collapsed completely. "You don't understand," she cried, stepping forward. "I was forced, they." Tom raised a hand sharply. "Enough." Max growled, his stance protective around Emma as two officers moved in to secure the lady. Tom looked back at the small girl, tears streaking her cheeks. "Now, you did the right thing," he said softly. "You're safe now." Emma looked at Max, the dog who had understood her before anyone else, and whispered. "He heard me when no one else could." Tom's throat tightened because deep down, he knew. Max hadn't just sensed danger. He had heard a silent call for help and answered it. The concourse was now sealed off. Yellow security tape cut across the hall, and uniformed officers stood guard near every exit. The hum of travel had been replaced by whispers and flashing cameras. What had started as a routine patrol had become a full-scale investigation. Tom stood near the corner of the security office, watching through the glass as two detectives questioned the lady in the blue jacket. Her composure had completely shattered. She sat slumped in the chair, eyes hollow, hands trembling. Max lay quietly at Tom's side, still alert, his eyes tracking her every movement through the window. A senior investigator stepped in, holding a folder thick with newly pulled records. His expression was grim. "Her name isn't Sarah Jones," he said flatly. "The IDs in her bag are all fake. We cross-checked her prints. Real name's Lisa Kane. She's on an active watch list in 3 states. Tom frowned. "For what?" The man's voice dropped. "Child trafficking, recruitment, and transport." A heavy silence filled the room. Tom's stomach turned as the weight of it sank in. He looked at Max. The dog had sensed it all along, before anyone else could. According to records, the investigator continued. She's connected to a network that moves children across state lines using false family identities. Each time she pretends to be the guardian, the pattern fits perfectly. The phone in her bag, likely used for coded communication, one way only. Tom exhaled slowly, anger and disbelief mixing inside him. "So, Emma, she wasn't her daughter. Not even close," the man replied. "The girl was reported missing 3 weeks ago. Her real family's been searching nonstop." Through the glass, Lisa's voice suddenly rose, broken, frantic. "I didn't want to do it," she cried. "They made me. If I refused, they said they'd—" Her voice dissolved into sobs. Tom didn't feel pity, only a deep, steady ache in his chest. He looked down at Max, who was still lying at attention, calm and resolute. "You knew," he whispered, brushing his hand over the dog's head. "You knew she wasn't safe." Max blinked slowly, his eyes steady and loyal, certain, unshaken. The detective closed the folder. "You and that dog just saved more lives than you realize," he said quietly. "If she'd left this station, we might never have seen any of those kids again." Tom nodded silently, eyes on Max. The German Shepherd's tail moved once a slow, solemn wag. He didn't need words. He'd done what he was born to do. He had protected the innocent. Night fell over the city, painting the skyline in shades of blue and steel. The police station buzzed with urgency. Phones ringing, radios crackling, boots echoing against concrete floors. The atmosphere was electric, charged with determination and fear. Every officer knew what was at stake. Tom stood beside a large digital map spread across the operations board. Red pins marked locations connected to Lisa Kane's movements over the past few weeks. Train stations, motel, abandoned warehouses. At the center of it all, a blinking light traced the GPS signal pulled from the phone found in her bag. It was moving. Another contact point, the lead investigator muttered. "They're shifting the rest of the kids tonight." Tom clenched his fists. "Then we don't have time to wait." Max sat beside him, alert eyes focused on the flashing dots. His ears twitched at every sound, the soft buzz of the comms, the tension in the room, the emotion radiating from his handler. He could feel Tom's heartbeat in the air. Steady, ready. "Bring the K9 unit," the commander ordered. "We move in 5. Minutes later, the convoy rolled out. Sirens cut through the night, red and blue lights bouncing off glass towers. Inside the lead vehicle, Tom's hand rested on Max's vest, the word "police" gleaming faintly in the dashboard light. "You ready, friend?" he whispered. Max let out a quiet whine. Not fear, but focus. His eyes glowed with purpose. They arrived at an old industrial district on the outskirts of town, rows of empty warehouses swallowed by darkness. The signal had stopped there. The officers spread out silently, weapons drawn, flashlights slicing through the night. Tom crouched beside Max, unclipping the leash. "Find them," he murmured. Max darted forward, nose low, tail, stiff, moving like a shadow with purpose. He weaved through debris and broken fences, sniffing the air, following an invisible trail that no human could sense. Suddenly he stopped. His body froze, ears up. A low growl rumbled from his throat. Tom caught up quickly, flashlight, cutting across a locked metal door. Behind it, faint noises. A muffled sound, a child's voice. "Here!" Tom shouted. Officers rushed over. One of them used a crowbar to pry the door open. The hinges screamed as the metal gave way. Inside, dim light revealed the impossible. 5 children huddled together, eyes wide, closed, dirty faces pale with exhaustion. The room fell silent for a heartbeat. Then one child whimpered. "Are you the police?" Tom swallowed hard, nodding. "You're safe now." Max approached slowly, tail lowered in calm assurance. The children's fear melted into awe. One of them reached out, touching his fur with trembling fingers. "He found us?" the boy whispered. Tom smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. "Yeah," he said quietly. "He always does." The radio crackled behind them. All units, children secured. And for the first time that night, the entire team exhaled. They had beaten the clock. The warehouse echoed with sirens, footsteps, and shouts as officers moved swiftly to secure the area. The rescued children were being escorted to safety under blankets and soft reassurances. But in the midst of the relief, Tom noticed something. A sound that didn't belong. A car engine. He turned sharply toward the back entrance just in time to see headlights flare to life in the dark. A black SUV roared down the narrow service road, tires screeching. "They're getting away!" an officer shouted. Before Tom could answer, Max lunged forward, barking fiercely. A warning and a promise. Tom's pulse surged. "Go, Max!" he yelled, releasing the leash. The German Shepherd exploded into motion, paws pounding against the wet pavement. The night air tore past him as he ran, muscles coiling and releasing with every stride. Ahead, the SUV swerved, its taillights flickering through the fog. Unit 3, suspect vehicle heading east. Tom shouted into his radio as he sprinted after his partner, the rhythm of his boots and Max's paws blending into one relentless chase. The driver tried to lose them, spinning around a corner, too fast, clipping a trash bin that clattered across the alley. Max didn't flinch. He leapt over the debris, closing the distance with terrifying precision. Inside the vehicle, the man behind the wheel cursed and slammed the accelerator harder. But Max was faster, a blur of focus and fury. "Come on, pal, just a little closer," Tom whispered under his breath. Running full speed, adrenaline burning through exhaustion. Then, with a final burst of power, Max lunged his jaws, caught the edge of the driver's sleeve through the open window. The man shouted, jerking the wheel. The SUV skidded violently, spinning out before crashing against a chain-link fence. The engine sputtered, steam hissing from the hood. Tom reached them seconds later, gun drawn, shouting, "Police, don't move!" The driver stumbled out, clutching his arm. Max stood between them, growling, controlled, protective, unrelenting. Tom quickly restrained the suspect as backup units swarmed the scene. As the cuffs clicked shut, the man spat out, "You think you've stopped it? You don't even know who you're dealing with." Tom glared, tightening his grip. "Maybe not," he said coldly. "But we know you won't hurt another child," the suspect sneered. But his defiance faded when Max stepped forward, eyes locked on him, the embodiment of justice in fur and muscle. Moments later, officers dragged the man away. The flashing lights illuminated Max's face, calm, steady, victorious. Tom knelt beside him, breath heavy, but proud. "You did it again, partner," he whispered. Max panted softly, his tail giving a slow wag. In that dark alley surrounded by chaos, one truth shone clear. It wasn't just training that made Max remarkable. It was heart, and tonight that heart had brought the light back into 6 children's lives. The storm that had raged through the night had finally broken. By dawn, the city was quiet again. Soft light spilling across the horizon, touching everything with the pale warmth of morning. The warehouse district was sealed off, marked with yellow tape and flashing lights. But inside the command zone, something extraordinary was happening. The rescued children sat wrapped in blankets, sipping warm cocoa handed out by volunteers. Paramedics moved gently among them, checking vitals and whispering comfort despite the exhaustion in their small faces. There was a glimmer of something new: safety. Tom stood a few steps away, watching as Emma, the small girl who had started it all, spoke softly to a social worker. Every now and then, she glanced toward him and Max. Her eyes were tired, but they no longer carried the same fear. Max lay beside Tom, his fur still damp from the rain, his head resting between his paws. He looked calm now, though his eyes followed Emma wherever she went. A familiar voice broke through the morning air. "Officer Tom?" He turned. A man and woman rushed forward, escorted by detectives, Emma's real parents. Their faces were pale with disbelief until the moment Emma saw them. "Mom, Dad!" she cried, running forward. The reunion was instant, arms wrapped tight, tears streaming, the kind of embrace that no words could ever capture. The officers nearby turned away quietly, some smiling, others fighting the lump in their throats. Tom exhaled deeply, his chest tightening with emotion. He glanced down at Max, who lifted his head slightly, ears perked. "You see that?" Tom murmured. "You did that?" The small girl broke from her parents and ran toward them. She knelt beside Max, throwing her arms around his neck. The German shepherd stayed still, only his tail thumping lightly against the ground. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice muffled in his fur. "You're my hero." Tom blinked back, the burn in his eyes. He reached out, resting a hand on Max's shoulder. "He hears that kiddo," he said softly. "He always does." Nearby, one of the investigators approached, holding a thick folder. "The network's broken," he said quietly. "Your dog's nose and your instincts, they saved more lives than we can count." Tom smiled faintly, his gaze on Max. "We just followed the truth," he replied. Max looked up at him, eyes calm, loyal, and proud. For the first time that long night, Tom realized something simple. Sometimes heroes don't need badges or words. Sometimes they just need to listen. The morning sun had risen fully now, cutting through the mist and painting the city in soft gold. The chaos of the night was over. What remained was quiet. The kind of silence that follows after something deeply human has happened. Tom sat on the station's front steps, his uniform still damp, his body exhausted, but his heart full. Beside him, Max sat tall and alert, his gaze sweeping the parking lot, where police cars idled and officers shared quiet words over steaming cups of coffee. It was all over. The suspects were in custody. The children were safe. And somewhere inside the station, Emma was laughing, her first real laugh in weeks. Tom smiled faintly at the sound. He looked down at his partner. "You know," he said softly. "If I hadn't trusted you back there, I might have told you to heal. Might have walked away." Max turned his head, slightly golden eyes meeting his handlers. He didn't wag his tail or bark. He just stared, calm and knowing the way only Max could. Tom chuckled quietly. Guess that's why you're the real detective, huh? The German Shepherd pressed his nose lightly against Tom's arm, a simple gesture that said more than words ever could. Moments later, a car door opened. Emma stepped out with her parents. She hesitated for a second, then ran toward them, her pink jacket catching the sunlight. In her hand, she held something small, Max's old K9 badge tag, which Tom had given her before they left. She knelt beside Max again, smiling through happy tears. "I'm going to keep this," she said, "so I never forget you." Max blinked slowly, his ears twitching as if he understood. Tom's throat tightened. He placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. "You don't have to forget," he said gently. "He's part of your story now, and you're part of his." The girl hugged Max one last time before standing and running back to her parents. Tom watched them drive away until the car disappeared around the corner. The station yard was quiet again. Only the breeze moved, rustling the flag above them. Tom looked at Max, voice barely above a whisper. "You don't just protect lives, friend. You change them." Max's ears flicked, his eyes softening as he leaned closer, resting his head against Tom's leg. And as the camera pulled back, capturing the two partners framed in the soft light of morning, the narrator's voice echoed. "Sometimes heroes don't wear capes or carry weapons. Sometimes they walk on four paws and listen to the cries no one else can hear. If this story moved, you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because every view helps us tell another tale of courage, loyalty, and the incredible bond between humans and their